All right, let's turn that down a little bit. Hey everybody, it's Tom, WA2IVD. And as I hinted in a previous video, this will be the first tutorial for the Yaesu FTX-1. I decided to do it in my truck instead of taking the radio out. We'll see how this works out. This time we're just going to cover the basic controls on the front of the radio and the very basic functions. So let's get started. I'm going to start on the left side of the radio here and kind of work my way around. Well, I'm going to work my way across and then we'll do the buttons on the top. On the left side, the bottom left button is volume. And this is volume for the subband. I should back up probably and explain the subband. So there's two receivers on this radio, main and sub. Main is the one on the right. Sub is the one on the left when you're in the dual screen side-by-side mode. We'll get into the different options you have there in a minute. But subband is always on the left, main band is always on the right. So the bottom left knob, volume, and if you press it, it's going to be either squelch or RF gain. And when I press it, you'll notice the little indicator on the bottom changes from red to yellow, indicating it's the alternate mode. So I can turn the squelch up and down here on this side. And if you just don't touch it, it'll go back to volume, or you can press it again to go back to volume, and then you're on volume. And let's see if I get on something where I don't have tone squelch on here. There. So there's your squelch up and down, and then volume up and down. Now, this is squelch right now because I'm in FM on, well, doesn't matter what band, it's modes. So I'm in FM, and I believe in FM and AM, this acts as squelch. This knob, when you do the alternate function, if you're on sideband or CW or data, any of those modes, then when you press this, this is going to be RF gain instead of squelch. There are menu options to change whether it automatically switches or you can force it to be one or the other in any mode. We'll get to those in a later video. The next one up, I probably should have done this first, is the power button. And obviously, power button turns it on. It's a press and hold. So we'll turn the radio off. And then if you press and hold, it turns the radio back on. You have an LED indicator here showing you that the radio's on, and it's blue whenever the radio is powered up. Regardless of whether you have a battery attached or you're on 12 volts, doesn't matter how you're powering the radio, this is always going to be blue when the radio's on. When the radio's powered off, if you have the battery attached to the field unit and you are connected to either USB-C power or 12 volt power, this will indicate the battery charge status. It'll be red if the battery's charging. It'll be green if the battery's fully charged. If it's flashing red and green, then there's a charging error. That probably means you got a problem with the battery. Hopefully none of you see that anytime soon. The upper knob is tuning for the subband or the sub-dial. And this is tuning whether you're in memory mode or VFO. I'm in memory mode right now, so you'll see a channel number up here. Whoop, I didn't mean to touch that. It is a touch screen. I'm in memory mode, so I'm changing channels. If I was in VFO mode, it would just tune the frequency. We'll show you that in a minute. And then if you press the sub-dial, that is what changes between active sides or active, I was going to say active bands, active sides of the radio. So right now, the main band or the main dial is my active side of the radio. That's for transmit and receive. The sub side is only receive. And you can tell that a couple of ways. One, the numbers are larger on whichever dial is active. So if I make the subband active, those display numbers get larger. The other way that you can tell is there's this little TXRX, I don't know how well this will show up on video, but it's red. And the red TXRX means this is the transmit and receive band. The inactive side has a little green RX. And I keep touching that screen. The little green RX indicates that that's the inactive band, so it's receive only. Now let's move over to the other side of the radio. Let me make that the main band. So the lower right knob over here, this is volume and either squelch or RF gain. In this case, I'm on sideband on 20 meters, so it's going to be RF gain. You can see the meter going up as I reduce the gain, and you can hear the signals going away. And it operates exactly the same as the left side. Let me turn that back down. Then the top knob on the right side is the function knob, and that is for getting to all the menus and operating menu functions. So if you press and hold this, it brings up the menu display. I'm not going to go through the menus. There are multiple pages of menus. Those will be in later tutorials. Pressing and holding this gets you into the menus, and then when you select a particular function, so we'll do, this is for the display, the spectrum display. Then rotating the knob changes that. And then one of the things that's unique that it does, I just pressed D peak, and you'll notice it says D peak up here in the upper right corner. I'm going to go back to D level, which is the display level, and that's listed in dB. And then I'm going to let this get out of this, and I'm going to hit the back button here. And you'll notice it still says D level up here. This knob remembers whatever the last menu function was that you used, and it stays there until you go pick another menu function. So now I can turn the display level, that's basically the sensitivity for the spectrum scope, up and down by just turning the knob. I don't have to go back into the menu if I want to use the same function that I had used before. Then of course we have the main tuning dial. This is the changing frequencies on the main band, and this is for changing frequencies in VFO mode, or if I go into memory mode, it's for changing memory channels. So this is your tuning whether you're in memory or VFO on the main side. Now the buttons on this side. Lower left is the back button, and that is to back out of menus. So let me just go into a menu here again. I'll go into one of the other menus. We don't need to worry about what they are right now, but this is the operation setting menu. And if I press the back button, or I can also touch the back on the touch screen, but if I press the back button, it goes back one menu. If I press it again, it goes out of the menu. So that backs you out of any menu operations. Lower right is for tuning, and let me actually go back to HF for that. Tuning, this is fine and fast for fine tuning or fast tuning. The normal mode, and you can change this in the menus if you want to have a different standard option, but normal tuning, you'll notice as I turn the knob, this is tuning in about 20 hertz, not about, exactly 20 hertz increments. So the minimum increment for tuning here is 20 hertz as you're tuning the knob. If I press the button briefly, it will say fine up here on the display. This is fine tuning, and now it's tuning in 1 hertz increments. So you can get very, very fine tuning, and of course take a very long time to try to get across the band. If you press it again, you're back to standard tuning. If you press and hold, then it'll say fast up here, and then the fast tuning is 200 hertz steps. So you get a little bit faster tuning for moving back and forth across the band. So that's the fine and fast button. And again, a brief press goes back to standard whether you're in fine or in fast mode. On the upper left, we have QMB, and that is Quick Memory Bank. This is a really handy feature. ICOM radios have a similar feature, a little bit different name. But if you're doing contesting or you're trying to work up, maybe you're trying to work a bunch of POTA stations, and let's say you find one. So here's a Here's a station that I found here, and I'm not going to work him right now, but I want to remember where he is. If I press and hold this, you saw QMB1 on the display, and it beeped to enter that frequency into the display. There are 5 quick memory bank memories. With a menu option, you can change it to 10. We'll talk about that when we cover that in more detail. But I kind of like it at 5 because I just use it as a quick thing for going around. So let's say I tune around a little more and I want to, I see a signal here, a little bit weaker, but doesn't really matter. I'm going to just tune to that signal, and let's say I want to come back to him later. I'm going to press and hold this again. You'll see it said QMB1 again. Every time you put into the memory bank, it always puts it in memory 1. The other ones are moved up to the other band, so they're rotating through as you do this. So let's put a third one in. I'll tune up here, and we'll get on that guy. I'm going to press it again. We put that one in memory bank 1, and then let me go up to here. So this will be 4, I think. And then there's a big strong one that of course went away. All right, whatever, he's right here. So I'm going to press it again. That should be 4, and then let me go, I don't know, we'll go way down to the bottom here. See, I should be going fast, and then I'd get there faster. All right, we'll go down, and let's say I'm interested in that signal later. So now I press and hold it again. So I've put 5 stations in here. Let me just go off a little bit here. So if I press this briefly, it goes back to memory bank 1. If I press it briefly again, it goes to memory bank 2. Again, it goes to 3. Again, it goes to 4. And again, it goes to 5. So you can just, and this just rotates through all those. So you just cycle through them. Now, if I put a 6th one in, then it would go into memory bank 1, and whatever one is in 5 would be pushed out, so you'd lose that one. So it's just the most recent 5. Very handy feature if you're doing contesting or trying to work stations that are doing special events or whatever it is. Then the last one around the tuning knob says CLAR. That's the clarifier. If you are a ICOM user, you will know this as RIT, or Receiver Interactive Tuning. So you'll notice it says clarifier on, and as I tune here, it shows me the number of hertz I am away from where I'm going to transmit. And if you look on the display here, you'll see the green line is moving and the red line is staying still. You'll also notice that the LEDs around the knob change to red to let me know the clarifier's on. So if somebody's a little off frequency, you can tune them in, but when you transmit, you're going to transmit back on the frequency that you were on to begin with. So receiver interactive tuning if you are used to ICOM radios, clarifier if you are used to Yaesu radios. That's receiver tuning. If I press it again, it says clarifier TX, and now as I tune, it's going to change my transmit frequency and leave the receive frequency alone. So this is changing where I'm going to transmit, and you notice the main frequency doesn't change, but it shows me how many hertz I am or away from where I'm going to transmit. So that's transmit tuning, and if you are an ICOM person, that would be XIT, or transmit interactive tuning. And then if I press it one more time, it says RX and TX, and it basically moves everything up and down. But if I turn it, so if I move this way down here somewhere, if I turn it off, it goes back to the frequency that you were originally at. So like if you're working a net, let's say you're a net control operator, and you are on 14234, and you're running the net here, and you've got somebody who's a little bit off frequency, and you want to, maybe far enough off that they're hard to understand, you can press this 3 times, and then you can tune down and say, hey, you're a little off frequency, tune up to 234 where we are, and then you can press that and you're back to where you started out. It actually does tune far enough off that you could use this for split operation, because you could change your receive frequency or change your transmit frequency. If somebody's running split, you can move this far enough to actually use that for split also. Anyway, that's the clarifier. And then finally, the last button on the face of the radio on this side is the display button. That changes how the display is set up. So the default, when you first power the radio up out of the box, will be like this, side by side, main on the right, sub on the left. If you press this, it changes it to main on the top, sub on the bottom. This is where I said this is always the left side. Well, now it's the bottom side, just because they're different on the display. So in this mode, you don't get the spectrum scope. It gives you a larger version of each display. If I press it again, I get just one dial on the display. So it gives you a larger display of the meter and the numbers, and you get the spectrum display back. This is the main dial, and you can tell that because it says main over here on the left side, since you don't have larger or smaller numbers to look at. And the button on the sub dial still changes, so if I press this, now it's the main dial. And when you're in this mode, you do not have the other receiver operating. So you'll notice if I turn this up, you hear 20 meters here. If I switch, I've only got the 2 meter frequency. I'm not hearing the main dial anymore. I'm only listening on the sub. If you're in either of these modes, you're obviously listening to both sides. So in the single mode, you're only listening to one receiver. So this does shut off the other receiver. So you need to be aware of that. If you're, for example, if you want to operate 20 meters, but you were listening to your local repeater on 2 meters, if you're in this mode, that you're not listening to the repeater anymore. So let's go back to the default. So that's everything on the face of the radio other than the display. We'll go through the display things at a later time. But that's the main functions for operating the radio. Now you have a series of buttons across the top here. The first button is for Group Monitor and Wires X. Those are Yaesu System Fusion digital modes. Not going to talk about those today. The next button is Super DX, S-DX. And I'm not sure what the difference is between this and a preamp, but if I turn the volume up a little, you can probably hear this. You'll notice the display got much more active. Signals all look much stronger. And if I turn it off, they get weaker, and you'll notice the meter moves as well. It's basically turning on a preamp. The reason I say I don't know why it's different from a preamp is in the menu functions, there's also preamps that you can turn on. And even with the preamps on, you can still do Super DX. I think it's just another preamp, but that's the name of it. The next button over, and you're going to have to forgive me, I don't remember if it's Program Memory Group or Preferred Memory Group. It's PMG, but it's used for putting specific memories you want into a memory group. And if I press and hold it, it just said PMG1, and it put that into that group. That's a little more advanced function. We're going to cover the details on that another time. Next button is the memory active group and band button. So a lot of these are 2 function buttons. So memory active group is if you're in memory mode. Let me turn that back down. On the memory over here, you'll notice it says M all. I think you can read that on the display, hopefully. M all means that as I tune through the memories, it's going to go through all of the memories. So you see I've got some 2 meters here, I've got some 440 memories, I've got some 6 meter memories, and even some HF memories. If you press the memory active group, it says now MHF. So as I tune, it's only going to tune whatever memories have HF. Huh. It's only going to tune whatever frequencies have HF memories, except apparently for channel 1. Well, that's something new. I didn't know that, so maybe it's everything except for channel 1. I'm not sure why. If I press this again, now it says 50 megahertz, and now it's only going to tune 50 megahertz frequencies. Oh, here it doesn't go to channel 1, so that's 6 meter frequencies. If I press it again, it says VHF. Now it's only going to tune 2 meter frequencies. Don't tell anybody, but 6 meters is actually VHF. But so now in VHF it's only 2 meters. If I press it again, oops, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. If I press it again, what about, oh, forgive me, I switched over to the other side. If I press it again, now it's UHF, and so now it's only tuning UHF frequencies. And then the last one, it says M Group, GRP. And this is a handy one for scanning if you want to scan through your memories. So group memories, and it's, if you notice here, it's 2 meters. It's actually a subset even of 2 meters. It's not all of my memories. When you store something in memory, this will be in a later video, there's a little group tag that you can turn on or off. Any memory that you have the group tag turned on is what memories will display here in the group mode. And so if you want to scan, you can put it in the group and it'll only pick the specific memories that you have tagged with that group tag. And then if I press it again, it goes back to MAll. And you'll notice all of the limited memory groups, this turns red, and when you're in all, it turns white. So it's kind of easy to see without having to read it which mode you're in. Now, the next one on this, if you press and hold this, and let me go back to my other band where I'm in VFO mode. If you press and hold this, it brings up the band display. So this is how you change bands. So if I want to, and you only have a few seconds. So I can go to 20 meters and it'll change me to 20 meters or to 10 meters, whatever. That's how you change bands, is you press and hold this button, and it says band on it. You can see that. You'll see it in the video. So that's the memory active group and the band button. Next one over, also 2 function, is narrow wide and also the mode button. So let me get a signal on here so you can hear this. Let's actually use our band button. We'll go back to 20 meters because that's what I have my antenna set for right now.
You've done well. Excuse me, you've done well with the setup there.
Okay, so you can hear the signal. If I go to narrow, you'll notice this display changed here. It goes to a narrower filter, and you can set what the narrow is and what the wide is. We're not going to cover that today, but pressing this briefly changes you between your wide filter and your narrow filter for whatever mode and band you're on at the moment. We'll turn that back down. And then finally, if you press and hold this, that is your mode. So sidebands, AM, FM, data modes, and so on. Now, you can get to mode in 2 ways. So if I press, press and hold, and if I want to go to CW or whatever, and it shows you that in the upper right corner of the display. CWL is CW on the lower sideband, CWU is CW on the upper sideband, which is just which side you're tuning on for your side tone. The other way you can change modes is you can actually just touch the display, touch the mode on the display, and then that will also allow you to bring up the mode menu. So you can get to modes 2 ways, touching it in the display or pressing and holding the mode button. All right, next one over, also a 2-function button. there's two little arrows on here and it says split. The two little arrows are switch frequencies and switch everything from side to side. So I'm on 20 meters sideband on the main band, and I'm on memory channel 1 and memory mode on the subband. If you press this, now I'm on memory mode and memory channel 1 on the main band and 20 meter sideband on sub. So it just, everything that's in the bands, mode, frequency, everything else is just swapped from the main, between main and sub. So if you want to quickly change over which one you're using. And then if you press and hold this, let me actually put the main band back over here. If you press and hold this, it puts the radio in split mode. That'll do two things. So it will copy the frequency that's in your main band over to the subband, and the subband is now just transmit. So it says RX here, so I'm receiving on 20 meters, and then I can tune with the subdial my subband over here, and this allows you to operate split. So I'm going to transmit on 214, 540, and I'm receiving on 255. And you can also use the swap to swap these back and forth. If you want to hear what you're going to be transmitting on very briefly to make sure it's clear, you can do that. And this is just standard split mode operation like you might do with any radio. It's a little nicer here with the double receivers. Not that I'm receiving over there, but because I can see both displays very clearly what's going on. Now, with the double receivers, when you go to split mode, I've lost the receiver on the subband. I'm not listening to whatever I was listening to over there, and I'm not listening to my other frequency over there. And this is a good time for me to actually remember to mention this. I'm sorry, press and hold that to get back out of split. When you are using main and sub, you can have almost any combination of frequencies between the two sides and listen. So here I'm listening to 2 meters and I'm listening to 20 meters. They're both receiving at the same time. If I change my main band over here, I can go to VHF, UHF and listen to both at the same time. I can swap them. I can have 2 UHFs. I can also have 2 VHFs. The one thing that it will not do is you cannot do, oops, let me get to, all right, now I got to get there so I can show you this. Let's say 40 meters. You can't do 2 HFs at the same time. So my active side is the subband, and you'll notice that the main frequency is grayed out because that receiver is not working right now. And if I swap back, now I'm on this receiver and this one's grayed out. So you can't do HF-HF. Every other combination is legal. All right, moving over, and you've seen me press this and use it a couple of times. This is VFO memory, so this swaps between VFO mode and memory mode. And if you are on the main band, the little LEDs around the dial tell you if these are blue, then you're in VFO mode. And if they are white, you're in memory mode. And you can also tell by, you'll see the memories up here versus the little blue VFO. Whoops, the little blue VFO on the display. And you see the same thing over here on the subband. So you have a couple different ways to tell. But on the main side, these LEDs give you an indication of your mode. And you saw that they turned red when we were in clarifier mode. The second function on this button is memory write. So if you press and hold it, if I want to put whatever frequency I've got in here in memory or subdial, whichever one is active, if I press and hold this, it brings up a memory display and I can scroll through all of my memories and We're not going to go into memory operations in detail, but let's just, I'll put this in memory 260. So you press and hold it, it brings up this memory page. I'm on memory 260, I press and hold it again, and it's now written the mode and the band and the frequency and everything into that memory. Not going to go into details on memory operations today, but that's how you write into the memories. It's pretty quick and simple. And then finally, the last one, this again is dual function. It's got M to V, which is memory to VFO. So let me go back into memory mode. So I'm on a UHF frequency here on 440. If I go M to V, it put that frequency in the VFO and switched me to VFO mode. So now I'm in VFO mode and it copied it in. Let me go back to memory mode. The other function is memory tune. It says MT there. Memory tune is if I press and hold this, it will allow me to change my current frequency in memory, but it does not change what's written in the memory. So I can tune off the memory. This would probably make more sense if on an HF frequency. And if you just do memory, the VM, it's going to go back and recall whatever was actually in the memory. So let me go find that one that I just stored up there. There we go. So this is the one that I just stored in memory 260. If I do press and hold, it says MT here in the display in yellow, and now I can tune around, and I'm tuning off the memory, and I can transmit here, whatever. Everything functions kind of like you're in VFO mode, but if you just press the VM button, it will take you back to the memory frequency without overwriting it. All right, that's all the buttons and dials around the front of the radio. One more indicator I didn't show or didn't talk about. Right at the very top of the main tuning dial here, there's a little LED on the left and a little LED on the right. When you transmit, that will show in red, and it's on the right side if I'm there. If I switch over to this band, it's on the left side. And if you are on a mode like FM on 2 meters where it is squelched, let me go there, and when you unsquelch, it turns green, so it shows you that you're receiving a signal. So that little LED shows green and red for either side. All right, now we've covered all the knobs and dials and lights. Haven't covered the display yet, but I think that's enough for this time. I hope some of you found this useful. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Tom, WA2IVD, and this is Ham Radio A to Z.